Let me read a letter. A good Erev Shabbos. I write to you today regarding a struggle I overcame, yet feel rotten about. I'm a teacher, and on the day of PTA, I found out that there was a student who was doing something wrong. I'm not going into the details. I didn't have time to ask the student about it that day, but I was advised to mention it to the mother due to the seriousness of the matter. The mother, quite a tough woman, was shocked and angry and called me up the next day and screamed at me for 10 minutes, saying that her daughter denied everything about this accusation. She added other insults in this one-way conversation, and I just listened, and at the end responded, I hear you, but I'd rather not discuss this now. I was so hurt, and I tried to ignore it, knowing that this is a tough woman. And then, after a while, upon reflecting on it from a more objective viewpoint, I realized that while she was very wrong, so was I. And after many long decision moments, I reached out to her with a letter simply apologizing for acting rashly and how I realized I was wrong and asked her for forgiveness. I left her my contact info to please let me know. She emailed me in response as follows. Thank you for the letter. We received it. I'm sure it wasn't easy for you to send it, but it definitely was in place. I discussed it with my daughter, and we now have no hard feelings towards you. We never held it against you, and we're moichel you. May you have continued hatzlacha. When I read her response, I didn't feel that should be good feeling of relief. I was actually disappointed that she didn't apologize at all from her part. I thought that by me starting off the apology, she will also apologize, but it didn't seem she felt the need to do so. I'm so confused with my own emotions. I feel that I should be happy with the forgiveness, yet I'm still holding a grudge against her for not even bothering to ask me forgiveness. Please advise me how to view the situation correctly. Many thanks for all your insights. Okay, so the first thing I'll start by saying is that I usually discuss chinuch hashalom bayis, but as I often point out, almost all relationships run with the same rules. So, in this case, it's a parent, a teacher, a student, it's all the same. It's really all the same. Very many relationships, if not all, but I won't say all, I try not to generalize, very many relationships are what I would call somewhat unfair. On some level, they're unfair. Unfair. People, because each person is wired differently, because each person has their own perspective, each person has their own nature, their own personality, each person has the things that are easier for them or harder for them. Everyone's just such a big mix-up of so many different components and such the dynamics that by definition, two people are coming together, each with their own set of things. It's often unfair. It's not even and fair. The amount of give and the amount of take and the amount of pros and cons and benefits and qualities, it's just not fair. You have to understand that. Two people that are coming into a relationship, objectively, someone from the outside, not the person themselves, but somebody from the outside will probably be able to notice on some level or different areas, sometimes more in this area, sometimes less in that area, but it's not fair. It's not a fair give and take. They're not giving and taking the same amount. They're not tolerating and benefiting the same amount. That's all. It's all okay. It's all normal. Sometimes it evens itself out because in this area this one's giving more, in that area that one's giving more, and sometimes it doesn't. Some people are more self-aware. Some people are more considerate. Some people are a little less. It's just how it goes. Now, what happens is when two people are subjective, and everyone is subjective, so you have two people that are both subjective, seeing things from their own place. Most people might feel. Many people may feel in certain relationships that I'm the one that's tolerating more, I'm the one that's giving more. It's because each person sees it from their own place. The person on the outside might be able to assess properly and say, well, this one's really giving more. When you add it all up, the subtotal, this one's benefiting more from the relationship, this one's, but each person on their own might feel like, okay, so I'm giving more, I'm tolerating more, I'm accepting more, I'm really offering more to this relationship. And really I don't want to accommodate so much, and really I don't want to have to give so much. These are all normal feelings. We're all human. We're all very subjective. We all take things very personally. We all see ourselves and understand ourselves and stick up for ourselves. And it's normal to feel that it's somewhat lopsided. And there are other relationships that really are lopsided. There are relationships that are very lopsided. I spoke about this once in a class titled "The Lopsided Relationship." I think that's what it was called. I think that's what it was called. How some relationships are lopsided. You have someone who, in order to get from the spouse or from the partner or whoever it is, you have to really invest a lot. That's very lopsided. Why do I have to give so much before I start getting something? because that's how it is. If you're in such a relationship, that's what it is. And every relationship has its unfairness. I'm saying all this, somewhat in introduction, but the idea is that if you're a very sweet teacher trying to help a child, I'll be honest with you, from reading the letter at least, I know nothing more about the situation in the letter, it sounds like you're apologizing and you're being somewhat self-critical and, what was the other word? That you reflected and you were also very wrong. I don't know what you were wrong about. So far, I don't know. Something went on with a child. It seems that you were advised to mention it. You did mention it. You got screamed at. And here you are bashing yourself and apologizing and accepting that you were also wrong, which maybe you were, I don't know. And it's good when people think sometimes that they're wrong. But at the same time, it seems you did. It seems based on your description of the situation, which I know nothing more than that, is that you're dealing with a very tough woman who seems to have been somewhat out of bounds and screaming and not accepting, what you were trying to do over here. And you're the one that apologized and she didn't. So, yeah, it seems unfair. It seems that this is what looks like somewhat of an unfair relationship. Someone who's kind, sweet, tolerant, and apologizing, and someone who's tough and abrasive and not apologizing. My point is that this is normal. It's normal that very many relationships are just not fair. So if you're going to whoever gets stuck on that, how unfair it is, and how come it's not a two-way street, and how come whatever, that's how many relationships are. People don't like it, but you got to deal with it. You got to live with it. You got to. That's how it is. Now, the person who's somewhat more self-critical, let's call it, or more self-aware, it's a better word. Self-critical sometimes just sounds wrong when people are criticizing themselves too much. Well, someone who's self-aware, it's important to understand and to accept that self-awareness is a gift. Is a gift. A person who's self-aware and able to see where they did wrong, where they could have done better, they notice where they were a little out of bounds, regardless of what someone else did more out of bounds. But when someone's able to notice where they went wrong, it's a gift. Very many times people who realize their own shortcomings or they're aware of their own deficiencies, they sometimes get resentful, like, why am I the only one noticing where I could do better? Shouldn't you also notice? I'm a good employee and I'm noticing where I should be doing better, but you as an employer, you should also... People get resentful sometimes by the fact that I'm being self-aware and the other person's not. Like I said, it's not always fair. And if you're the one that's self-aware, it's a gift. It's a gift to know where you're wrong. Now, some people do overdo it, like I said. Some people take responsibility for what someone else is doing wrong. I must have caused it. It must be all my fault. Obviously, that's overdone. But there's no reason to mix it. There's no reason why, if you did something wrong, it should mean that now you're responsible for someone else did something wrong. There's a place for everyone to make mistakes. And that's where it gets black and white. Like, should I take all the blame and now the other person did nothing wrong? But that can't be. So that person must be the bad one, and really it's not my fault. We make mistakes. I make mine. You make yours. Even if you don't see yours, I'm willing to see mine, and I won't be resentful or upset about the fact that you didn't notice yours, because I'm happy that I have the gift and the ability to be self-aware and notice my shortcomings and work on them and own up for them. And if somebody can ask forgiveness, asking forgiveness is an art and a gift, and many people can't do it. I've heard this from many people. My spouse, my partner, my sibling, my parent, my child could never say I'm sorry, never say I was wrong, never say could you forgive me, never. And whenever I ask, why wouldn't you say I'm sorry? Well, we first have to explain what I did wrong. No, I have no problem saying I'm sorry, but I have to first know what I did wrong. But if the person never says I'm sorry because they never know what they did wrong, that means they can't say I'm sorry. That's a problem. That person is a problem. I'm not saying it to give them a label. I'm not saying it to call it a disorder. But you have a gift that they don't have. If you could say I'm sorry and you can own up when you do something wrong, even if someone did something worse than you and can't own up, you're still a lucky person. This reminds me of, I think it was the Klozmer Geruv. I think that's what they say, a story about where the Nazi was beating him or hurting or hitting him, and he screamed at him, "You dirty Jew! Are you still so happy to be the Jew? You see, you're laying on the floor getting beaten. You're still happy to be the Jew." I think this is how the story goes. The Heidegger Klozmer Geruv answered, "As long as you're the one with the stick beating, and I'm the one getting beaten, I'm happy to be the Jew. I'm happy that I'm not the one beating someone else. Yeah, I'm happy to be a Jew." And I'm reminded of this very often when people are in a situation where they feel put down. They feel, I'm the one asking forgiveness again. Now, I admit I did something wrong, but what do you mean? How does it compare? I mean, why should I always be the one forthcoming? Why do I have to go through this? How come nobody's ever coming to tell me I'm sorry? The answer is, as long as I'm the one that's able to own up and say, I'm sorry, could you forgive me? I'm the winner. I feel good. I feel good. Not because I'm better than you, not because I'm winning you, but because I feel good. I feel good that I have this ability to own up and be honest about my shortcomings and not... Now, it goes further than that, because when somebody has hard feelings against you, even when they're wrong or also wrong or partly wrong, it's not good. It's not good for anyone. It's not good for anyone. When somebody has hard feelings against you and there's that kind of tension, you don't feel good. That's it. It could be their fault, but you don't feel good. When you clear the air with an apology, you feel better, so you do it for yourself. Often. Even if you have to do it for someone else because you hurt them, then of course you should be apologizing for that reason. But even if you just do it for yourself, you're the one that's going to come forth and apologize when called for, and when it's not causing bigger problems, the fact that you're owning up for things you never did. But in general, you're clearing the air, you feel better. And then there's all the spiritual thing, where at the end of the day someone's upset at you, and we see how these things affect people in this world. The fact that somebody's upset, and somebody has such hearts, and they're waiting for mechila, whatever it is, you benefit from being the one that's forthcoming and saying, you know what, I'm sorry, please forgive me. You forgive me? Thank you. You're not asking me to forgive you? Okay, so it's between me and Hashem. I could say by Krishma Shalamit, if I forgive everyone, if I don't forgive everyone, if I have to, if I don't have to. But I'm happy that I'm the one that's able to ask it and get it, and I should feel good about that. Instead of feeling resentful and walking away, why did I just do that? No, I did a favor for myself, and it's a gift. It really is. I think that in most cases, you see what you're describing over here is not so unique, because I think in most cases, I'm saying this also from personal experience many times, when two people don't get along, a lot of tension. And usually I'm not talking about spouses in this context, but two people don't get along, whether it's siblings or neighbors, and then they make up. In the coloring book, the way it looks like is they were both feeling down and they made up, and now they're both happy. We got over it. Most often, when two people are making up and walk away happy, one of them just swallows something very hard for the sake of peace. It wasn't that because we discussed it, we cleared the air, and now we're both feeling better. One of them usually walks away feeling much better, that they got out the steam, and we made up, and the other one's like, you know what, let's ask forgiveness, okay, thank you. Walk away, and they swallowed. They're usually not both feeling the same relief. They both accomplish something, and they're both feeling better going forward with less tension in the air, but most often, the peace isn't so even, because by definition, that's not how it goes. It wasn't two people that were actually hurting each other. They both owned up and both asked forgiveness and both walked away feeling good. That's not how it works in real life. Most often, a peace means that one of them, was more humble and swallowed it down, and for the sake of peace decided to give the impression or to work along as if, you know what, let's put this behind us. And that's how it should be. So the one that does that should never feel like I was gypped. That person goes away feeling so good that I'm their friend again, and that I asked them forgiveness and that they forgave me, and really it didn't go both ways. That's how it goes. You should feel like a winner when you're the one who knows how to bite the cup and say I'm sorry if it's productive. I keep on saying if it's productive, because sometimes saying too many I'm sorry's just makes things worse, but if it's productive, you should feel better about that. I don't mean to imply that anyone should ever demand an apology just because it's good to give one, right? When people demand apologies, that's sometimes a reason not to give an apology. Just recently talking to a guy who tells me his wife won't let a conversation move on, and she won't let a meal be served until he apologizes for all the things that she demands the apology for, without even knowing what they were. Obviously, it's wrong. That's not what I'm talking about when I say it's good to be the one that's able to apologize. But being able to see where you did something wrong and coming forward with it is something that you should feel good about. You should feel good about. Now, in general, and this is a point I mentioned before about machloikas in general, the fact that when there's people with a heavy heart one on another, it's not good for anyone. That's how it is. It's not good for anyone. It always brings problems. And when you could resolve it, even when you're not responsible for it, even when the other person was more responsible for it, you're a winner. I saw a story, I think from Rabbi Feinstein, if I'm not mistaken. A Talmud was dating a girl, and everything looked good. It was a good shidduch, and everything was valding. He was talking to Rashiva, Rabbi Feinstein, what he thinks about the shidduch. And David said, if it looks good, it's great. So he said, she mentioned something about her family was embroiled in some machloikas over there. It was very bad machloikas, the parents, grandparents, uncles, whatever it was, but it had nothing effect on her or on the shidduch. And David said, if that's the case, then don't do the shidduch. So what do you mean? But we have such a good connection, and we like each other, and we were so ready to move forward, and everything was looking good. The fact there's machloikas in the family. So the way machloikas affects people is so bad that I don't want you to have to deal with it. I don't want you to have to go through it. The way the machloikas in the family could affect the young couple, even if it has nothing to do with you or her, or will no way affect your own relationship, your own home, I don't want that to happen to you. I don't want you to go into such a shidduch. Now, I don't want to scare anyone, but we all know, and this is a common idea, that somebody's upset at the other person, it affects them, right? The business is failing because somebody has a Ein Hara, or somebody was a Kapaida in the Shidduch, or whatever. Now, when you think about it, very many of these situations where A is upset at B and it's affecting B, and B is now going to ask forgiveness from A, B has all the right to be upset at A just the same. You have two people, and one feels the need to clear the ear, when really the other should feel the same need. But it doesn't make a difference. You're a winner when you're the one that says, you know what, I'll step up, I'm going to clear this, it's good for me, I feel good that I'm able to overcome this. So I think that, getting back to the situation over here, if you were the one, for whatever reason, you reached out because you knew someone's upset at you, or because you actually felt that you made a mistake by mentioning something about PTA, whatever it is, and you said, I'm sorry, and someone says, I forgive you, and that person is not able to ask forgiveness for screaming at you or for mishandling a situation or whatever it is, you're the winner. Feel good about it, walk away, and know that you did the right thing. Now, there is such a thing as difficult people, tough people. There's different names for it, which I don't want to go into. Some people will consider it sometimes some kind of personality disorder. Sometimes people will just look at it like a tough personality. Some people call it high conflict people. There's different books and different studies and different things, but there is such a thing. However you want to term it, or if you want to term it, or you don't want to believe in any terms, there is such a thing. There are people that are very confrontational, people that are very obnoxious, people that are very full of themselves, people that behave narcissistically. There are such people like that. I'm not going to make believe there aren't. And sometimes you just have to know how to either avoid them or get along with them. In other words, if you knew that this woman is very tough, maybe it would have been a better idea to just keep quiet or think about how to say something in advance, because some people just don't know how to hear these things. It's very sad when you have to deal with someone like that and you have to acknowledge the fact that there's no one home. But there are such people. And knowing how to avoid it. Somebody was telling me about a situation where a teacher was told by the administration, a mother was calling and harassing the teacher, taking a lot of her time and being very nasty and controlling. And the teacher went to the principal and said something like, what's going on over here? I'm getting these calls. I don't know what to do with this. Am I supposed to answer? Am I supposed to pick up the phone? No, you have to tolerate it because this mother is involved with the higher ups and we don't have a choice, and this goes on every year and you just have to deal with it. I don't know what type of thing that is. You pay a teacher for whatever preparation she has to do and running a classroom, and you'd have to pay an extra salary for someone to be harassed on the phone in the morning and at night and to hear this kind of nonsense just because she's close with the higher ups. I think it's ridiculous, but sometimes that's just how it goes. Sometimes just acknowledging, okay, this is a difficult person, you have to deal with it. At least knowing it in advance makes it easier than trying to figure it out on your own after 3 months, realizing, oh, she's difficult. My point is that there are difficult people out there, and sometimes you want to stay away from them when you could, and sometimes you want to just deal with them the right way when you could, and sometimes you want to err to the side of caution when you could, and address people very, very gently. Very many parents would be appreciative when you bring up something by PTA and you say, I think there's a problem over here, especially if they know that it might be true. And even when it's not true, they'll say, okay, thank you for bringing it to my attention anyway, because it means that you care for my child and you care for me, and I'm happy that you bring it up, because when or if it will ever be true, I want to know about it. I don't want you to hide anything from me. And you have the people who just can't have it, people who can't hear it. So it's important to know who you're dealing with and know how to only address things in a way that people could handle, and know how to talk to people in a way that they could take your messages. And life is about balance. I always say there's a famous book which I never read, but I heard about it very much, and I think the title says it all. No More Mr. Nice Guy. No More Mr. Nice Guy is helping people understand that when you're too much of a nice guy and you tolerate too much and you're always catering to everyone and you're always accommodating everyone, they just step all over you. Right? So the book is telling you, no more Mr. Nice Guy. Now, obviously, life is about balance. You want to be a Mr. Nice Guy. You want to be a nice person. You want to know when to tolerate and swallow L'man Hasholem and L'man Hashem and L'Shem Shemayim, and feel good about being the one that's doing that and not always waiting for it to be even. And knowing that it's not always even. At the same time, don't always be Mr. Nice Guy and know when it's just not healthy and not good, and when it's just best to stay away. So the short recap is that relationships by definition are often unfair. Very often unfair. Stop trying to make them fair. Stop wondering why they're not fair. Sometimes that's how they are. In different areas, sometimes they do even out, sometimes they don't. That's just how it is. Being self-aware, being able to doubt yourself, being able to notice where you did something wrong, being able to apologize and ask forgiveness is a gift. You should be happy with it. You should thank Hashem that you have it, and you should use it in the right way, in a healthy way, not overdone. But you should feel good about that. Staying away from and clearing machloikas or hard feelings, something you should feel good about, even if it was done in a very lopsided way and not the way that it should have been. You always come out the winner, and you should feel like the winner. And yeah, acknowledging that there are difficult people out there who you just have to be more careful in advance about how you address them, and if you address them, how much you have to do with them, and all that. It's just something to take into account. I don't want to deny that this is a thing. I don't want to deny that you could probably have known that in advance with a little more thought. And if you're a teacher and you have parents every year, you have to be careful. You have to be careful. There are people that just don't know how to accept things, and sometimes it's just not worth trying. So with that, I think it just goes back to the idea that I started off with, and I hope it doesn't sound too condescending to compare it even, but like I said from the Oiv Yisrael, Mitzrayim, Avida Moisam, it's not necessarily that person's place to teach you how to be a nice teacher. It's not the place of a difficult mother to teach you how to be an even nicer teacher. Not necessarily. But if that person was the one that brought you to the awareness that maybe you did something wrong and that maybe you could have been even nicer or maybe ask forgiveness, so be it. You're the one that's walking away with more refinement, working better on your character, understanding yourself better. And this happens in marriage, this happens everywhere, where it could be the wrong person that's teaching you where you're doing something wrong. But if you know how to accept it and hear it and say, you know what, you're right. It doesn't mean that I'm at fault for everything, but I'm willing to acknowledge where I could be doing something better. And I believe it helps us understand each other better, feel better about ourselves, and live together.